Welcome to Simpler Bible, a daily journey to biblical understanding. Now we've come to the end of the book of Joshua. We're going to read Joshua 22 through 24 today. It's a long one, but super interesting. And you're going to find a couple of really familiar texts in here. So I look forward to sharing it with you today. We call today Returning and Warning, episode 63, chapter 22 of Joshua, beginning in verse 1. At that time, Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh. So these 2.5 tribes, only half the tribe of Manasseh wanted to stay on the east side of the Jordan. And he said to them, "You have kept all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and have obeyed my voice in all that I commanded you," which is surprising, right? "You have not forsaken your brothers these many days, down to this day, but you have been careful to keep the charge of the Lord your God. And now the Lord your God has given rest to your brothers as he promised them. And therefore turn." I want to remind you that it's not the spiritual rest that's coming that we see in Psalm 95 or Hebrews 3 and 4. "Therefore turn and go to your tents in the land where your possession lies, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you on the other side of the Jordan. Only be very careful to observe the commandment and the law of Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, to keep his commandments, and to cling to him and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul." So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. Now, to the one half of the tribe of Manasseh, Moses had given possession in Bashan, but to the other half, Joshua had given possession beside their brothers in the land west of the Jordan. When Joshua sent them away to their homes and blessed them, he said to them, "Go back to your tents with much wealth, with very much livestock, silver, gold, bronze, iron, with much clothing. Divide the spoil of your enemies with your brothers." So the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh returned home, parting from the people of Israel at Shiloh. That's an important place, which is in the land of Canaan. Go to the land of Gilead, into their own land, which they had possessed by themselves through the commandment of the Lord through Moses. When they came to the region of the Jordan, so these 2.5 tribes, if you're looking at your map, they've helped conquest and defeat Israel, and now, or defeat the nation of Canaan. And they come back to the Jordan. They're going back over to their possession, which is on the other side of the river. And as they come back and they get to the edge of the river, here's what happens. The people of Israel, they built their, let's see, here, what does it say? Verse 10. "So they built there an altar next to the Jordan, an altar of imposing size. The people of Israel heard about it and said, 'Behold, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the people of Manasseh have built the altar at the frontier of the land of Canaan in the region next to the Jordan on the side that belongs to us, the Israelites.' When the people of Israel heard this, the whole assembly of the people gathered together at Shiloh to make war against them. Then the people of Israel sent to the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest, and with him 10 chiefs, one from each of the tribal families of Israel, and one from the head of the family among the clans of Israel. And they came to the people of Reuben, the people of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead. And they said to them, 'Thus says the whole congregation of the Lord, what is this breach of faith that you have committed against the God of Israel in turning away this day from following the Lord and building yourselves an altar this day in rebellion against God? Have we not had enough of the sin of Peor, from which even yet we have not cleansed ourselves, and for which there came a plague upon the congregation of the Lord?'" All right. So a couple of things we got to put into perspective here. You'll notice that the 2.5 tribes build an altar next to the Jordan. The rest of Israel is going, "Oh my goodness, they're turning away from God already. They're turning to idolatry." It is mentioned, the sin of Peor is mentioned here in verse 17. The sin of Peor, which was Numbers 25, and the sin of Peor was what Balaam tricked the people into doing, to intermarrying with the people of the Moabites under King Balak. That happened in Numbers 25. We are now in Joshua 22, and that has only been about 6.5 years ago. It has not been very long. The other thing that we need to note is that Phinehas is the current priest. So you had Aaron, and he was the brother of Moses. You had his son Eleazar, the priest, and then you had Phinehas. So this shows you kind of the timeline, right? Do you remember Aaron died? Aaron died back in Numbers 20, and then Eleazar dies, and now Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, is priest. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest. So Eleazar is currently the priest, and Phinehas is his son who's going to speak on behalf, right, of his dad. And so kind of gives you the timeline. This is all just within a few years. And he says, "Have we not had enough of the sin of Peor, from which we have not yet cleansed ourselves?" And that's an interesting thing in verse 17. So they haven't even dealt with all the Moabite women they've intermarried. They haven't even put an end to all the people who sinned in the sin of Peor, even though 24,000 fell that day. And he said, Must you this day, verse 18, must you this day turn away from following the Lord? And if you too rebel against the Lord today, then tomorrow he will be angry with the entire congregation of Israel. But now if the land of your possession is unclean, pass over into the Lord's hand where the Lord's tabernacle stands. Take for yourself possession among us. Don't rebel against the Lord or make us as rebels by building for yourself an altar other than the altar of the Lord your God. Did not Achan, the son of Zerah, we talked about him very briefly yesterday. We found him in Joshua 6-8. He's the one who stole some stuff from Jericho, and as a result, his entire family died. Did not Achan the son of Zerah break faith in the matter of the devoted things, and wrath fell upon all the congregation of Israel? What he means there is at the battle of Ai, they were defeated. And he did not perish alone for his iniquity. So this is the concern of the people. They're saying, look, you Reubenites, you Gadites, you half tribe of Manasseh, you're building an altar to an unknown God next to the Jordan. We're supposed to worship in the tent of meeting. We saw that back in Leviticus. Don't worship any other place. Don't build an altar in any other place but the tent of meeting, so that you'll quit worshiping these goat demons, so you'll quit serving these other gods. And he says, when Achan sinned, he wasn't the only one who died for his sin. When the people sinned at Peor, there was a plague that struck against us. He goes, you're going to bring wrath on all of us for doing this. You're going to get us all in trouble with God for sinning this way. Verse 21. Then the people of Reuben, the people of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh said in answer to the heads of the families of Israel, the mighty one God, the Lord, the mighty one God, the Lord, he knows. Let Israel itself know. If it was in rebellion or in breach of faith against the Lord, don't spare us for building an altar to turn away from following to the Lord. Or if we did so to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings or peace offerings on it, may the Lord himself take vengeance on us. No. But we did it from fear that in the time to come, your children, your descendants might say to our descendants, what do you have to do with the Lord, the God of Israel? For the Lord has made the Jordan a boundary between us and you, your people of Reuben and the people of Gad, and you have no portion with the Lord. So your children might make our children cease to worship the Lord. Therefore we said, let us now build an altar, not for burnt offering, not for sacrifice, but to be witness between us and your children, so that you won't be able to say you have no portion with the Lord. So here's the thought behind the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. They've crossed the Jordan into the inheritance of God, and they're going to live on the other side. The Reubenites, Gadites, half-tribe of Manasseh. They've built an altar, and they're doing that not to worship God on it, not to worship idols on it, not to lead people astray. What they're fearful of is that the people in the nation of Israel will one day say, you're on the other side of the Jordan. What do you have to do with God? You're not really part of Israel. You're not really part of us. And they built this altar there as a memorial so that they can remember, hey, even the people who are just across this river, because remember, it's built right next to the river, even these people who are just across the river serve the same God that we do. So that's what he's thinking. That's what these tribes are thinking. It doesn't work. So I know that they were thinking that it doesn't work, and they'll eventually be considered kind of out. But look at verse 28. And we thought, if this should be said to us or to our descendants in time to come, we would say, look at the copy of the altar of the Lord, which our fathers made, not for burnt offerings, not for sacrifice, but to be a witness between you and us. Far be it from us that we would rebel against the Lord and turn away this day from following the Lord by building an altar for burnt offering or grain offering or sacrifice, other than the altar of the Lord our God that stands in the tabernacle. When Phinehas the priest and the chief of the congregations, the heads of the families of Israel who were with him, heard these words that the people of Reuben and Gad and the people of Manasseh spoke, it was good in their sight. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, said to the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the people of Manasseh, today we know that the Lord is in our midst, because you have not committed this breach of faith against the Lord. Now you have delivered the people of Israel from the hand of the Lord. And I think that that's funny. Now you have delivered the people of Israel from the hand of the Lord. You've only delivered the people of Israel if God was mad at you for building an altar to an idol. But anyway, the people return back. They give a good report to Joshua and the rest of the people, and they say, look, the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half-tribe of Manasseh, they're not against God. And so I wanted you to look at a couple of things here in chapter 23. Joshua's now kind of giving his closing remarks to the people. We remember Moses doing that in Deuteronomy, and now Joshua is giving his closing remarks. It will be way shorter than the book of Deuteronomy. And he says this to the leaders of the people of Israel. He says in verse 5, he says, the Lord your God will push these enemies back before you and drive them out of your sight. You shall possess their land just as the Lord your God promised you. Therefore, be very strong to keep and to do all that is written in the book of law of Moses, turning aside from it neither to the right hand or the left, excuse me, that you may not mix with these nations remaining among you, that you may not make mention of the names of their gods, or swear by them, or serve them, or bow down. So he does not want them to intermarry with the nations of the people they're supposed to drive out. That's a very important thing. It will be brought up in Ezra and Nehemiah as a sin that the people are still doing, and Ezra and Nehemiah are hundreds of years in the future. It will be a problem that the people continue to intermarry with these Canaanite people, and as in the sin of Peor, when they intermarry with these Canaanite people, their hearts will be dragged away to follow other gods. And so he goes on to say down in verse 11, be very careful to love the Lord your God, for if you turn back and cling to the remnant of these nations remaining among you, and make marriages with them so that you associate with them, and they with you, know for certain that the Lord your God will no longer drive out the nations before you, but they will become a snare and a trap for you, whips on your sides and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from the good ground that the Lord your God has given you. So he says, look, don't intermarry with these people. They'll be a stumbling block to you. They'll be like thorns and whips. And this is the same thing that Moses says to the people in Numbers 33. And so now he's kind of giving his final charge, chapter 24. And this is where you're going to see a verse that's very, very familiar with us, but maybe with a funny nuance that we haven't noticed before. Joshua 24, verse 1. Joshua gathered all the tribes to Israel at Shechem. And Shechem we saw back in Genesis 34. And we summoned the elders, the heads of the judges, and the officers of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. Joshua said to all the people, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, long ago your fathers lived beyond the Euphrates, Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor, and they served other gods. So Abraham, remember, was an idolater when God called him out back in Genesis 12. And then I took Abraham from beyond the river, led him through all the land of Canaan, made his offspring many. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau, and I gave Esau the hill country of Seir to possess, but to Jacob and his children they went down to Egypt. And I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt with what I did in the midst of it, and afterward I brought you out. So Joshua's giving his recap now. Then I brought you and your fathers out of Egypt. You came to the sea. The Egyptians pursued your fathers with chariots and horsemen to the Red Sea. And when they cried out to the Lord, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians and made the sea come up over them and cover them. And your eyes saw what I did in Egypt. And that was Exodus 14. And you lived in the wilderness a long time, 40 years. And I brought you into the land of the Amorites who lived on the other side of the Jordan. And they fought with you, and I gave them into your hand, and you took possession of their land, and I destroyed them before you. So he's reminding them of all that God has done. Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, arose and fought against Israel, and he sent and invited Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. So this is Numbers 22 through 25. But I would not listen. So listen, he sent Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you, but I would not listen to Balaam. Indeed, he blessed you, so I delivered you out of his hand. And then you went over the Jordan, and you came to Jericho. So now we have what? We have Joshua chapters 2 and 6. And the leaders of Jericho fought against you, and also the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites, and I gave them into your hand. I sent the hornet before you. I have no idea what that is. There are several theories in different commentaries on it. None that I am completely settled on, so I'll let you do your own research. Which drove them out before you, the two kings of the Amorites. It was not by your sword or by your bow. I gave you a land on which you had not labored, cities that you had not built, and you dwelt in them. You ate the fruit of vineyards and olive orchards that you did not plant. Do you remember what God had warned them back in early Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy 8 and Deuteronomy 9? He said, when you have everything that you want, when you have everything that you need, be careful that you don't turn away from the Lord. Now, therefore, so he's reminded them of the whole journey. Now, therefore, fear the Lord your God and serve him in sincerity and faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and to serve the Lord. This is a sad statement, in case you're missing it. This is sad. Joshua's saying, put away the foreign gods that your fathers served beyond the river, and put away the foreign gods of Egypt. Up to this point, they're still worshiping these other gods. That's really sad. And he goes on to say this, and if it is evil in your sight to serve the Lord, choose for yourself this day whom you will serve. The gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That statement right there, right? As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's the last phrase of that. But what he says in the whole verse is, if it's evil in your sight, if you want to keep serving the idols of Egypt, if you want to keep serving the idols of the people across the land, do it. But what my household and I are going to do, we're going to serve the Lord. Listen to what the people say. The people answered, far be it from us, this is verse 16, that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For it is the Lord our God who brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, who did all these great signs in our sight and preserved us in all the way that we went and among all the people through whom we passed. Do you remember how they grumbled? You remember how all they did was grumble for 40 years. And the Lord drove out before us all these peoples, the Amorite who lived in the land. Therefore, we will also serve the Lord, for he is God. And listen to Joshua's response. No one ever talks about Joshua's response. They say, we will serve the Lord. And Joshua's immediate answer to them in verse 19, Joshua said to the people, you're not able to serve the Lord, for he is a holy God and he is a jealous God and he won't forgive your transgressions or sins. Like, wow. Joshua's getting in front of the people. He's like, look at all the great things God has done. Do you remember all the beautiful work God has done? How he brought us into this land? You choose who you're going to serve. You can serve the gods of the Egyptians that God destroyed. You can serve the gods of the Amorites that God destroyed. You can serve the gods of your ancestors across the river. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And the people are like, we will too. And he goes, no, you won't. He goes, you won't serve the Lord. You're not even able to serve the Lord. And he goes, and God's not going to forgive you for all your transgressions or your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, he will turn and do harm to you and consume you after first having done you good. And the people said, no, we will serve the Lord. And then Joshua said to the people, you are witnesses now against yourselves that you have chosen the Lord to serve him. And they said, we are witnesses. And he said, then put away the foreign gods that are among you and incline your heart to the Lord, the God of Israel. And the people said to Joshua, the Lord our God we will serve, and his voice we will obey. So again, he's telling them, you got to get rid of your idols then. If you're going to serve the Lord, get rid of your idols. Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and he put in place statutes and rules for them there at Shechem. And Joshua wrote all these books in the book of the law of God. He took a large stone and set it up there under the terebinth tree that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. And Joshua said to the people, behold, this stone is witness against us, for it has heard all the words that the Lord spoke to us. Therefore it will be witness against you if you deal falsely with your God. And Joshua sent the people away. These things Joshua, the son of Nun, did, the servant of the Lord, and he died being 110 years old, and they buried him. And then listen to this, verse 31, Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua and had known the work that the Lord did for Israel. That sounds great until you compare it to Judges 2, 7 through 10, which says the same thing. They served God as long as Joshua lived and those elders lived. And then it says in Joshua 2, 7 through 10, but the next generation grew up neither knowing God nor the thing that he had done. So they only are going to serve God as long as Joshua and the current leadership is in power. And the moment those guys die, the next generation will turn away from the Lord. And then verse 33 says, and Eleazar the son of Aaron died, and they buried him in the town of Phinehas, his son, which has been given to him in the hill country of Ephraim. So now Phinehas is going to be the new high priest. And that is a lot, but that is the end of Joshua. And tomorrow we will be in Judges 17 through 18. You're going to wonder why we're not in the first part of Judges, but I'll explain that then. See you tomorrow. Thank you so much for journeying with us today at Simpler Bible through another section of Scripture where we come to know and understand God a little bit better. Look, if you're brand new to Simpler Bible, we have all sorts of resources available for you. Go to our website, simplerbible.com, and there you can find these videos, you can find our podcast, you can find links to our social media, and you can even find a blog post with additional scriptures if you want to go into a little bit more study than we had time to cover in this podcast and video today. We hope that this tool will be exactly that for you, a tool. Not something that replaces your daily walk with God, but something that enhances your daily walk with God and helps you to know and enjoy him more. Thank you so much for being part of this, and we'll see you again tomorrow.